Sitting on the park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intensity. Hey, Aqualung, drying in the cold sun, watching as the pretty Peggy.
Have you ever wanted to play Clue, but didn't feel like going through the trouble of setting it all up? I don't know why, it's a pretty minimalistic setup, but if you do fall into this category, then Clue on Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis is your answer. For those who don't know, Clue is a murder mystery game. The rich tycoon, Mr. Body, has been murdered and you have to determine who committed the murder, what room it was in, and what weapon was used. In reality, it should be easy to figure out what weapon was used based on the bodily wounds, and the room it was in is most likely the room where you found them, but this is where you suspend reality and just enjoy the game. Cards are used to determine the solution to the crime. They're placed in a confidential envelope, and the rest are distributed to all the players. Each card eliminates that subject as part of the solution, so you have to find out what everyone else's cards are. In the board game, you do this by moving your piece around the long corridors of the Body Mansion to one of the rooms. From here, you speculate a possible solution, requiring the room you're in as the room of the murder, and if anyone has one of the cards, they have to show it to you secretly. Using process of elimination, you can narrow it down, and if you think you have the solution, you can make an accusation and check the confidential envelope. But if you're wrong, you're out of the game. Now this would not play well at all in a video game, as everyone would have to look away from the screen constantly whenever someone had to get information on the cards. You do have to do this to check your own cards, but once everyone goes around the table, you really shouldn't have to do it the rest of the game, although you do have the option to. The Super Nintendo incarnation has to be altered a bit from the board game in order to overcome these obstacles. You can still make suggestions to the solution whenever it's your turn by selecting Interrogation. Even if you're not in one of the rooms, you can pick any combination of suspect, weapon, and room, and if one of the players has one of the cards, the game will automatically choose one of them to show their proof. Each player can only do this twice per game, so pick your spots. The other way to obtain clues is by moving your piece to one of the rooms and selecting a suspect and weapon to go with that room, just like in the board game. But here, instead of the other players showing the cards they have pertaining to the solution, you'll instead get a clue that may either draw a connection between two parts of this potential solution, or maybe you'll just get one of them. For example, if you go into the lounge with Mr. Green and the lead pipe, you'll get a clue that says Mr. Green wasn't in the lounge at the time of the murder. Or you could go into the study with Professor Plum and the rope, and the clue will be that Miss Scarlet was in the study, even though you didn't pick her. These clues all draw connections between the suspect's rooms and weapons, and it's your job to connect the dots and solve the mystery. It's not the best way to play Clue, but it is a different way. Unfortunately, at the time of its release, it was the most expensive way to play Clue, which has always been my beef with video game adaptations of board games. Of course, it's a lot cheaper now. You can usually find it on eBay between $5 and $10, but even though it's a decent game, the board games are still much more enjoyable. There are plenty of editions of it too. My personal favorite is the Master Detective Edition. Not a lot has changed as far as rules are concerned, but it's greatly expanded with more rooms, weapons, and suspects. So if you get a big enough group together, you can have a 10-player game as opposed to 6 like in the original. It's pretty underrated as far as I'm concerned. And that wraps up this edition of Aqualung's Game Reviews. See you next time.